Soviet players were delighted to get ERA with the T-72B, but now there's another option, the T-64BV. T-64BV is part of the Red Dawn release for Team Yankee. One of the questions we're going to have to answer in this review is, what does the T-64BV bring over the T-72B? Is it going to give Soviet players anything they don't already have? Stick with me to find out. This is TSBX30, the T-64BV Tank Company box set. Part of the Red Dawn release, this box adds another ERA-equipped tank option for Soviets in Team Yankee. This kit is also available as part of the BMD Air Assault Battalion box set. You get 3 T-64BVs in that box. In fact, this is where this particular review kit comes from. This review is going to be a bit different. I already have a full T-64 kit review in the WWIII video on my channel. Link in the description below. The history and the plastic discussion here will just cover the BV variant. T-64 was designed as a third-generation tank to replace the T-54, 55 and 62 then in service. It introduced several new technologies, including a horizontally opposed engine, hydropneumatic suspension, laminate armour, a 125mm gun and an autoloader, the first on a Soviet main battle tank. But it was expensive to produce, and all of the new technology had kinks that took time to iron out. This prompted development of the T-72 using cheaper existing technology. Despite being originally considered as a war emergency design, T-72 would actually enter production. T-64 entered service in 1967 and would see several upgrades. The T-64B variant had upgraded armour, fire controls, sights and stabiliser, as well as firing the AT-8 Songster missile. As the threat from anti-tank guided missiles increased, T-64BV added ERA, explosive reactive armour, which provided better protection against heat warheads. Versions of the T-64 are still in action today. Let's look at the back of the box. There's 2 images of the completed kit, one as a standard T-64 and one as a T-64BV. The exploded assembly diagram shows the parts to build both versions, with the T-64BV parts outlined in red. The Tank Company box contains parts to build 5 tanks. You also get a hard plastic sprue of Soviet tank commander figures. There are no unit cards or decals included. Let's look at the plastic. The box contains 5 of the original T-64 sprue, plus 5 T-64BV upgrade sprues. It's this upgrade sprue that we're going to look at today. Again, if you want to look at the base T-64 sprue, I have a video on that already. Many of the parts in this upgrade sprue replace parts on the existing kit to make the T-64BV. This turret part has the added ERA armour blocks. You can see them moulded integral with the face of the turret. Note that part of the gunner's sight is missing. The sight is attached to a separate piece of ERA and will help position and anchor that in place. The loader's hatch is moulded closed, but the commander's hatch has separate open and closed options. You use the hatch parts from the original T-64 sprue for that. The NSVT machine gun at the commander's position also comes from the original sprue. The lower turret piece is pretty simple and has the lower portions of the front ERA blocks. The ERA provides a good gluing surface for the upper turret piece. This separate ERA block section mounts on the turret. You can see the missing sight here. Fitting that into the mounting hole in the turret should line this all up nicely. This part has the 8 smoke discharges that fit onto the turret's side near the loader's hatch. There's a large slot in the turret side that accepts a locating lug on this part, so positioning it should be pretty easy. The last turret piece is this new, slightly wider stowage bin for the turret rear. There's good locating pins here, and the bin and deep wading snorkel all come as a single piece. This section of ERA blocks is for the front of the hull. Underneath there's plenty of grooves and positioning marks to lock this into the correct position. Use the V-shaped water deflecting vanes on the front hull to line this up. It just dropped right into place for me. That just leaves the side skirts. These replace the simple rubber side skirts of the original kit and mount rows of ERA blocks. While these do have the faintest of locating lines to help you, they don't lock in as positively as the rest of the parts. I had to wiggle, push and reposition these a lot until I was happy with them. Given how positively everything else locks into place, I'm wondering if this is partly a limitation of the original kit's hull. Maybe there's just not a lot of clearance between the hull side and track run to get a decent locating surface on here, but with some fettling it can be attached. Here's the completed kit. I think it looks tremendous with the angled ERA on the turret. The parts from the original and upgrade sprues seem to work together just fine. The T-64 was already a good kit, and the BV upgrade sprue just makes it better. I did have some mould lines to clean off the barrel, but that's true of all Soviet tank kits. So the plastic's great, but is the T-64BV worth taking on the table? Let's have a look. This is the T-64BV Tank Company unit card. I'm not going to cover everything here, just the highlights. The BV version gets the ERA armour rule instead of BDD armour. BDD gives side armour 13 against heat warheads, while ERA boosts this up to 16. That means pesky little irritants like my Australian anti-tank Land Rovers with AT-17 can't touch you. The tank's base armour values are also slightly better. Front armour goes up from 17 to 18 and the side armour from 9 to 10. These might seem minor increases, but like Stillbrew armour for Chieftain, every little bit helps. The performance of the weapons are unchanged. T-64BV has the same 125mm gun performance and the AT-8 Songster missile found on the base version. Let's compare T-64BV against the Soviet T-72B. The skill, morale and other stats are the same. They're both hit on a 3+. T-64 has the advantage of mobility with a 14-inch tactical move afforded by advanced stabilizers. It also has an extra point of side armour, but both tanks get ERA protection. T-72B's AT-11 sniper missile has slightly better penetration at 22 than T-64's Songster with AT-21. That might help crack some tougher NATO tanks, but both guns have an AT of 22, so it depends if you plan to missile snipe at long range or use the gun. Most on-table engagements are at effective gun range anyway. However, the sniper's tandem warhead rule might help you if you're expecting to face an opponent with ERA or other special armour. Points-wise, T-64BV is a little more expensive than T-72B, but only 1 point more per tier, not per tank. You can end up paying as little as 0.1 point extra. Plus you can give all the T-64BVs in your company Songster missiles for just +2 points, where outfitting T-72Bs with sniper is +1 point per tank. That can add up. They're so close in capability it's hard to make a recommendation. If you favour a long-range sniping style of play, T-72B's sniper missile might tip the balance for you. But if your playstyle tends towards mobility and closing with the enemy, T-64BV might suit you better. In close, that extra point of side armour might be useful too. Red Dawn has added the T-64BV Tank Battalion to the Soviet forces diagram. You need to take a compulsory HQ, plus at least 2 compulsory tank companies of up to 10 tanks each. Cost starts at 16 points for 3 T-64BVs, up to 58 points for 10. That's from 5.3 points per tank up to 5.8. You can add a third tank company to the formation. These can be T-64s or T-64BVs. Other organic elements include infantry, recon, artillery, and both gun and missile AA. There are a lot of options with the T-64BV battalion to create a very self-contained all-arms formation. So that's the T-64BV for Soviet forces in Team Yankee. The upgrade sprue works well with the parts for the original T-64 kit that was already a fun build. The finished model looks fantastic, very nice indeed. Now Soviet players get 2 ERA-equipped tanks to choose from. They are very similar, so if you're not playing specifically to the strengths of one over the other, the choice is up to you. I really liked the T-72B kit when it came out, but the T-64BV looks even better. Soviet players have more tank choices than any other nation in the game. T-64BV is the high-tech end of the spectrum that goes all the way back to a T-55 Horde depending on your playstyle. If you're a Soviet player, what do you plan to choose? Is the T-64 the right choice for you, or do you plan to field something else? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the WWII's review for the full standard T-64 kit review in history. Thanks for watching. See you next time.